Welcome to the Dyson A10 assembly, reassembly video. We'll go over we have deconstructed the A10. It had some maintenance and cleaning issues we had to address. We have another video that you can look at for the deconstruction and the full deep cleaning of the A10, but we'll focus on the reassembly if in any case you need to do the reassembly yourself.
Oh, and welcome to Tech Fireside.
Who said that?
We'll start with the reassembly of the tank because it's one of the simplest parts. This one, when you're doing the regular maintenance, you also deconstruct these same pieces. You've got this little humidifier shaft here where the humidified water goes. So you just put this, slide this back into place here. If you line it up right. It does a little bit. It's got a rubber gasket, so it will stick a little bit, but then just kind of force it into there and just tight like that. And then there's a locking screw here that you just flip over this way, to the counterclockwise position, and it'll just snap in place there. Unlocked, locked, and that's all you need to do there. Then there's a small gasket that goes on the top here, and you literally, these clips will just push in. So you just push that right in the middle, and then just firmly there, and it has a little bit of give. That's the gasket, so that when it goes down, the fumes or the humidified water is humidified air is trapped in there, right?
Well, it is fumes when the thing is dirty.
Correct, yes.
So
it does look like fumes when it's running too. And then this is just the regular tank lid there, so that's not really anything
that's a
special.
one-way valve
You use
for
that
the
every
water.
day when you're filling it up. So
Yeah.
that's all you need to do to reassemble the tank there, so that one's ready to go. The next very simple part that we're going to reassemble is the funnel, and the only piece that comes off of this is this little rim, and the purpose of it coming off is just for the cleaning. Again, this is something I believe you do in the weekly or monthly maintenance kind of cycle. You take this off to clean it, any hard water buildup or whatever, but you simply just...
can you show us the inside of it that gets dirty? The part that would get all the gunk in it?
Yeah, and that one will go into a lot of detail or whatever, but this is where the air is going through, okay?
Yeah.
The air that comes through. And with the Dysons, right, the air's coming through the center, and then the humidified air is in a separate duct that we just saw coming from the tank there. So with this, we're just putting a seal around the humidified part, because you can see that channel's getting there, and that's where you'll see your hard water buildup and stuff like that from the water circulating, especially if your water's not very clean. And then that's taken off, cleaned, and then you just snap this back into place.
That answers my question.
Just very gently. Right there. Okay, now we're gonna get to the meat of this video, which is the reassembly of the part that it tells you not to take apart in your regular weekly and monthly cleanings. But that I had to take apart to fully clean out this system.
No disassemble!
The reason you don't take this apart is it's just typically the air going through, but for whatever reason, over a long period of time, this really gunks up in the air that's coming through here, especially if your home air is gonna be really bad. Again, we'll go into details of the whole cleanup here. But you need to reassemble. If you're gonna take this apart to clean out every piece of it, you have to deconstruct all this and then reassemble it together. So because this is kind of multiple parts, not to get overwhelmed, we'll take it piece by piece of reassembling certain chunks of this and then putting those together. Starting this main assembly here, one of the things that you probably shouldn't have disassembled, but I did, was this little nut off of the fan. So if you've done that, just make sure that you don't miss putting that back on. I think this just secures the fan so it's not spinning out of control.
Can you show the nut again?
Yeah, just that one right there.
Yeah.
So, and then you should just be able to just lightly thread that back on there. And I don't think you want to mess around with this one of not tightening it enough. So once you've got it on there, I'd recommend just getting a screwdriver, holding this in. It's the whole engine assembly is kind of attached to this. You can see it moving. So you'll hold the screwdriver here and more surely than that, and then just try to just tighten that just a little bit so that it's not going to go anywhere. And just as much as you can manage, don't go too crazy because it is plastic there, but you also don't want it to be too loose. You don't want to have this like flinging loose inside. So then you should be good as far as preparation there. And then one other item I would do is just look inside of here. And there's one of the wire units that kind of pulls out when you're disassembling this. So you just need to push this back in. It's got a little kind of black piece that's popped out there. And just make sure you push that back in.
Moving for just a second.
Yeah, right there. See how that's kind of pulled out there?
Yeah.
It's already got the gaskets and everything already in it, so you just have to push it back into place. And I think that's important, just to have a nice seal down there. And you just kind of have to wiggle on both sides of it until that's now nice and flat there, and it's got a seal.
Yeah.
And now we'll move on to the next part. Put back in here is going to be this kind of black white funnel here. This one just sits inside, so there's 3 grooves on here, and that's just for the 3 screw holes that you see there. So you just kind of line those up, and then you're just going to kind of sneak that in. Now it's going to give a little bit of tension here. There's a little foam cylinder that you saw from before that you're just kind of pushing that into, so you just lightly do it until it falls in, and then you know that that's now in there. And that has a little bit of give, like some of these other pieces is kind of like a gasket, right? So it's not like firm on there.
So you're trying to be careful not to rip it as you're
Yes.
pushing it in there.
Correct.
Okay.
So don't just crank on it, but yeah, you give it just a little bit firm and then it'll just pop in, right?
Okay.
Okay, so that's really simple part there. We're going to weave these wires back into place, and we'll do that as a separate clip here so we can kind of speed that up because it takes a little bit to do that. Okay, so you have your wires aligned. You'll notice I had set this in here to reach the wires better, but now let's go ahead and set this correctly. So you just want to make sure when you're putting this in here that you line up the gap where these little screw holes go in the assembly. Actually hold it in the middle. That's a better way to kind of twist it around till you get it in the right spot. But I think what you're looking for there is there's a screw hole that lines up down there and over on this side. And the only thing you have to be careful of is the wires here getting properly lined up. I think in one of the gaps is the biggest thing. So let me spin this around till I get this in the right spot.
Does the piece underneath possibly have a direction?
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe that's the case.
Well,
flip it once.
You could possibly rotate that so the wire guide is over on this side a little closer. I don't know.
Oh yeah, so look at this. That piece there. And this piece here has like a little plastic.
Yeah.
And then that's also open. So I think you're right when putting this in. And this is really easy to just pull back out. You just really gently pull it. Then just turn this to where the wire side is. And we're looking for, I think, this piece here that has the little plastic tab that's different than those other ones.
Yeah.
Let's try that one out. We would probably line that up
Yeah, still got to line up.
right here. Yep, screw holes, but then your tab is over here. So let's see what that looks like now.
Okay.
Oops. No, hold on here. Yeah, okay. So that gap there, you have the, I'm sorry, this is the more unique feature. There's just a giant gap in the white rim around here.
Oh,
that's where
what
your
it is.
wires are going to be running. So just make sure that whatever wire side, because you'll have a side that the wires are coming up, aligns with that gap in the white black funnel. And then when you're putting this back in, then that will line up right there with the wires. We're gonna go put this piece on next. And this is a set of 4 screws. We will show a picture of the different screw sets, 4 screws in the 4th position, or number 4. It's really the only set of 4 screws that you'll find of that same size. They're a T10 head, this kind of star-looking head there. And you just can kind of test that before you go over to your workbench to work on that, that's a nice fit there. Okay, now we'll take that over and get that on. Put this piece right on there. And with all the work we've done with feeding the wires and everything, that's now out of the way. Just careful you weren't cinching any of your wires in. You've got the 4 spots, and then you'll just gently put those in. I'd be very careful when you're putting them in there so they don't fall through to the unit. And then give them a little jiggle, just make sure they're going in straight, and then you'll feel it nice and smooth. If it's got friction, you're maybe a little bit off, so just kind of wiggle it and then go when it's nice and smooth to go in. And we'll go ahead and screw all 4 of these on.
It's the iFixit screwdriver we're using here, which, by the way, it's magnetic, so makes it a little easier to not lose the screws.
Yes, once you get it on there, yeah. Yeah, and I am noticing that little jiggle when you're going just kind of gets it off of whatever bad path it's on, so that is a good tip here. And you're not cranking it down too tight, it's plastic parts, so just be careful, but nice and firm. And put this piece on now. This is gonna be secured by a set of 3 T8 head screws. Of the 3 sets, this is the 5th spot of screws on the picture, but just know it's a set of 3 with longer, kind of skinnier, versus the other set of 3 that's kind of shorter and fatter. We want the long, skinny ones for this one. You're gonna look for your wire openings like we've now started doing on these other ones, and that will secure right over the wires, and the other screw holes will line up.
Can you lift that up for just a second so I can see what's underneath it?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect.
And this will take just a little nudge to get it in securely. So you'll hear a little pop, and then that's now nice and flat. And the reason you need these longer screws is you'll notice there's a set of like 3 holes you're going through on this one now that we've kind of been lining up in the last few steps. So it needs quite a bit of distance to get through all of those. So we'll go ahead and screw these in and just kind of use the same method as before. Just give it a little wiggle if you feel like it's giving you any tension, because that means you probably don't have it lined up correctly.
Big, complicated Lego set.
Yeah. Super fun. This actually isn't too bad doing reassembly on this. I was really worrying about it after breaking all the parts apart, but this is not too bad. Dyson's good at engineering. Last part that we're putting on, there's kind of another preparation step like we've been doing some of these others. This wire needs to be fed back through this, and then this little black gasket piece just kind of sits back in there. So we're gonna just very gently feed this back in. If you've pulled this out at all, kind of. There may be black material here, that would be normal. I was pulling out a little bit too much of what's in here, so leave that alone. If you do see black material in here, that's supposed to be there. So just refeed your wire though here, and then we'll pop it in. Now it'll be a little bit tight once you get it in. Sorry, it's gonna be hard to see this, but yeah, we'll attempt a side there. You see that? So I've pushed it in.
Yep.
Just to secure it as best you can, and then push in that last piece. There's a little nub there on this side, not the other side.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're gonna line that towards the origin of the wire. Oh man, this is really tight. Ooh. Okay, we're going dark.
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Wow, that's tricky. Yeah, so it's really close, so if you're feeling like it's really tight, it looks like that's normal. So I don't think, yeah, there's no give on it, so that is just kind of what it's gonna be. But yeah, if you put that piece towards the origin of the wire though, okay, yeah, you can see that a little better. So That's the way to do it. So just kind of hug it right there. Run your wire with your finger there, and then pop that in. And then this is still movable so that you can do the next step and get it on there. Okay, so the screws for the top that we're putting on here is the other set of T8s from a head perspective, but it's the short, kind of fat looking ones, set of 3. Okay, so we've got the wire secured in here with that gasket piece. Now, the part you're gonna wanna line up is this with this piece here. Okay, that's your guiding line of where the 3 are going. And then you just kind of make sure you're not snagging the wires underneath when you're putting that. And then there is actually 2 little hooks here, if you want to see that. Oh, so they may look like you're getting stuck or whatever, but those are going to snap in where they're supposed to snap in. So just kind of adjust that till those kind of fit in where they're supposed to. And then when you put it down, that should line up. Yeah, and that's not really securing it. So the screws are going to be what secures that in place, it looks like. But that's where you've got that at. So let's go ahead and put the screws in. Oh, there we go. Never mind, that locked in.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
I stand corrected. It will lock in. So as I was starting to line up the holes better, it just locked into place in the back here. So those 2 little clips did lock in.
There's a very
like they were supposed to.
audible click in case the microphone didn't pick it up.
And that did not take a bunch of movement to do that. Okay, these screws are a little bit more tight, so that would be normal when you're putting them in. But you would still do the quick wiggle just to make sure that you're getting it in the right threads there. But these are tighter. But this is the top assembly, so that makes sense. You're trying to secure this really tight on the top. This is what's holding everything else in. There you go. That's now secured back on. We're gonna tackle the bottom. Again, reason we took off the bottom, there was just a bunch of gunk and everything. The air is coming through these sides here and then going up through the system. Okay, so all of this was all gunked up with all the electronics and everything. Again, we'll cover that in a cleaning video. So we will need to put some pieces back on. There's the piezo piece. This is the piece that vibrates the water and then makes it the humidified water. So we'll be putting that back on there. This is the UV light that kills the bacteria on the water that's being sent out. That's another kind of feature of this. So it's this pad that goes onto the bottom piece, and then another sub piece that goes underneath this. This is actually a sub hatch where you can access the UV light and piezo if you ever need to replace them. And I have had warranted replacements of those pieces before from Dyson. The bottom is actually put this piece back on. You can see there'll be an access for the piezo and the light here once we put this on. So we'll do those after. It's a set of 6 screws. Still a T8 head, so if you've got that on your screwdriver, still use that. But it's the only set of 6 screws. That's in the 3rd spot on the picture for reference. We're gonna put this part on next. This is the bottom assembly there, the bottom case there. We will put the piezo and the light in afterwards because it has a slot for that. So this one goes on first. And we will also be putting on the foam with it because that just goes with it. The screws are the 6 set of screws in the 3rd spot on the picture. Something to note, this is a T8 head, but you'll notice there's a little extension on it. On the kind of longest head we could find there. It's a very deep chasm there to get the screw in. So you need something like this, which just barely fits, or you may need to buy a T8 that can go, 1.5 inches, 2 inches in, so that you've got enough clearance. And I recommend getting something like this because this is just barely fitting it. So something to keep in mind. Let's go assemble. So you just need to quickly put on the foam before you're putting on the other pieces here. And that just fits with all the holes there.
We need to take a quick break here because when we filmed the original video, we did not cover something that I totally missed, but when I was doing the reassembly for the second white A10 that we cleaned up in the teardown video and cleanup video, I noticed that there are these little clips. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you here now. There are these little clips that little felt connects to. And if you'll notice in the video, I totally blew past that spot and I just said, oh, these little holders here hold it in place, but there are actually little clips to hold it even more securely in place when you put that in. So don't forget to do that part.
So nothing too complicated. And then we're going to flip this over. You can tell where this side's supposed to go because you have the piezo hole there and the light's gonna fit in there. And then you'll just very gently ease that in. You can use your piezo as kind of your guide because that has a nice little fit to it. And then this will kind of settle in a little bit. There we go. Then you're gonna grab your screws. Now, this is a very delicate operation. So you have 3 screw holes there, okay? And then you actually have 1, 2, 3 here. So that one wasn't a screw hole, it's just something I poked a hole in, but I had to poke a hole to get this one. You'll have already done this if you're disassembling, but so that's where that 6th screw is gonna go in there. So let's go ahead and drop these in and then push it as deep as we can in there, and then you'll notice there's just a little clearance, so it's just barely where it needs to be. And then as it screws in, it's gonna lose clearance, so you're just gonna screw it until it's nice and tight, and you will wanna give it a little pressure. Oh man, and then we'll lose our head each time, so we'll just keep pulling it out by dropping it out, so. But that's just part of our assembly. If you get one piece together, that's again another reason why I would recommend getting a unit that has all that in there. We'll go ahead and move it onto its side now that this is in, so. Yep, that's feeling really secure, so we'll keep going on these. That piece is done. Now let's go move on to the next piece. We're gonna be putting the piezo and the UV light back in, and then closing the enclosure for those 2 that are in there. You'll need the piezo screws in slot 1 on the picture, which is those 2, and then the single screw that's been sitting there in slot 2, that'll be for the cover. Let's go put it together. Okay, first we're gonna put the piezo back in place. So it has really 2 very clear screw holes that we put in there. This is the part that's gonna go touch the water there, so you're putting that back up in that
Can you show
position.
that to us again?
That's the piece. That's what makes all the magical vapors.
It's magic.
So, and this sometimes does need to get replaced. You can see it's kind of corroded, so we'll test that when we get it back in here. It's kind of corroded, but it was working when we disassembled, so. You just kind of put that on there. It's kind of got a little rubber of a feel of it to seal it on there. So make sure these are good and tight, actually, as you're assembling this. Yeah, be really careful not to strip them, but these are pretty stripped. So just be really gentle and just nice and firm, because you do want it to be just as tight as you can without stripping them, so that gasket is closed, because there's water that comes in from above there. And then you need to plug in this piece. All of these are really nice, easy plugs to put in there. So, oops, I'm sorry. This one goes over this way, black to black. That goes in there. And then you just snug that in there. Boop. So that's its power. Now we put the light back in. This one's really simple because it's just literally put the light, there's a little hole in there, and you just kind of feed that back in there, and it goes along a track, and there you go. That's now back in place. And it's kind of loose, but that's okay. It's just there's a this light sits in there, and there's this clear tube that the light just shines and kills all the bacteria for all the water that's coming into the system. So it's a nice little setup. This one is a little bit tricky, but just get the angle right and then pop that into place. That's now got power and ready to go. Then finally, just to cap it all back in, you've got the 2 hooks there, so you just kind of hook that in like that, okay? And you've got your final screw. No screws missing. That means you disassembled it correctly, or that your kids didn't steal all of your screws off the counter. All of these 3 were Phillips heads to get that in, so they're easily accessible for consumers, because again, you can get these replaced under warranty or buy replacements if those break or wear down. So that's why they're easily accessible. So there you go. Bottom unit is all reassembled. Okay, so as part of regular cleaning, you do take this piece off. So we're just going to put this in as kind of the final piece that's come off, but it's a very simple kind of little rubber gasket there. You can see the curve kind of follows the curve of this. So that kind of shows you where you put that back in. And it just very lightly fits in there. You don't have to shove it in there too hard. You see that just kind of lines up there. It creates a little channel there for that. So it's the last piece. So we're gonna go ahead and assemble the whole thing and test it and make sure this thing's still working. Together, like we normally would when you're using it. I have filled this up with just a little bit of water. I don't need a lot to test it. And screwed that on there like you normally would. This always lines up in the front here. You're putting that piece on. All of those parts fit in there well. We're getting the bubbles there, so that's the water's coming out, so that's good.
Doesn't look like it's leaking.
Yeah, that's the other thing we want to check for, is any water coming out from that piezo piece and all those that we're putting back together. This you just put back on there. You have to get a little click there. There's 2 little micro clicks there. That's all back together, and that's fitting well, so that's good. Okay, and we're just gonna plug this back in and rev it up. Make sure we didn't break anything in all the electronics. Moment of truth. It's booting up. That's a good sign. It takes just a minute for it to, I don't know what it does, but it's like loading.
Just admit it, you were a little bit nervous.
I was very nervous.
I'm really scared here, man.
I doused them in a little bit too much water. They were very dirty.
Yeah.
You'll enjoy the deconstruction video of the other. I have a white color of this that we will deconstruct and clean, and you'll get to see the fun of how dirty it gets. You hear the fan. So I think we're doing good there. And it does take a minute for it. It'll just do this cycle until it starts working.
Feel it.
Air's moving, yeah.
Yeah, so the fan works.
Yeah, and we'll see the humidified air coming out in just a minute here, so just give it 1 second. This is a lot of what was clean, is the air intake was kind of gunked up, and all of this has air that's inside of it, so that was all gunked up with all of the buildup.
Did a lot of that happen in your current house, or was that previously?
It's been a while. This was a very deep clean. This is like 2 years of use of it.
I was gonna.
So, which is probably in our older home. These homes that we're in now have good air filter systems.
Yeah. So I was curious.
And we'll probably do a review on the newer humidifier, the PH4, I want to say. It has an air filtration system with humidifier, and this unit has taught me why. Because the air coming in here is a big factor. There's humidified air coming out in the little slot, but the rest of the volume is just essentially a fan that has no filtration at all. It's just sucking the air clear out the bottom here. So whatever the air in your house is, you're just shooting that in your humidified air. So it's kind of a disadvantage. So, but if you've got air filters in your home combined with this one, I would say that's a big deal. To combine that as part of that, and they would function a little bit better, I think. Come on. It does take a few minutes here for this to cycle. Right at the moment of truth. So vapors are coming out. You can see that working now. It's gone from cycling to now it's telling you what the humidification level is, humidity level, whatever. So, but you can see that coming out.
51% in here?
That is what that's telling us.
Wow. That seems high.
Oh, well,
I mean, this is,
that's interesting. As for this room, yeah, it's a little bit more humid. We're in the basement, so.
yeah, I guess so. Well, that's...
But boom, this is exactly what we want to see. You see it coming all around. Again, there's that channel that it's putting all of the humidified air through, right? And then the kind of classic Dyson, it's got the air in the middle that's pulling it out, right?
Yeah.
Through the technology that they have. But it worked. So deep cleaning, good idea. Because the water, the humidified part stays really clean from the UV light, right? But again, the air coming into here, and you can see all those inner workings that we put back together, they can get pretty gunked up. So I would recommend a deep cleaning like this if you have not done that on your A10 in a year or two or something, because there's a monthly and weekly maintenance. We will do monthly and weekly maintenance videos, like upgraded ones, so that you can maybe avoid having to do a deep clean like this. We'll see. So we'll do some of those. And we also have the deconstruction video so you can see the cleaning of a unit before the reassembly. That'll be another important piece. So thanks for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe if this helped, and leave some comments too if there's something we missed or if there's some suggestions. Okay.